listening to us, good morning, and welcome to 1 Million Cups. My name is Grace Belangia, and I am Executive Director of the Clubhouse. And I think we have some new faces here. Obviously, we have some new speakers as well, but some people in the community that are on the side. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with the format of Google Meets, it is similar to all the other virtual information that you can get out there. Chase Lanier, who's on our team, if you put a question in the chat, he might be able to help you. He's helping to sort of monitor the audio. And like I said, we'll be recording this and having it available for those of you that want to go back and get some of the information. Really quickly, I just want to share 1 Million Cups is a national platform. It's underwritten by the Kauffman Foundation, which is one of the largest private foundations in the country that helps entrepreneurs and startups headquartered in Kansas. We normally show a promo video, but we're going to go ahead and not worry about that right now. We do this we started hosting this group 2.5 years ago. We started out hosting it every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. And after the 2019 new decade, new format, we changed into every weekly at 9 a.m. So every week at 9 a.m., we've been having 1 Million Cups at the Clubhouse space at the Georgia Cyber Center. We have since transitioned to a virtual 1 Million Cups, obviously with the sign in the times. So we appreciate everybody checking in right now this morning. You do not have to be a member of the Clubhouse, so you can share this with everybody. Our organization is going to be transitioning in the next 2 weeks, looking at all the other virtual opportunities we have. So please stay tuned for that. If you don't already subscribe to the Clubhouse newsletter, it'll show you the other events that we have. And we are pushing out a lot of content related to small businesses and all of the supports that everybody could use. So that being said, we're really excited to have 4 speakers with us this morning. And I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves. We have reached out to our local constituents with SBDC and SCORE. And, if I can have Rebecca and Eric and Rick just introduce yourselves really quickly in your organization, and then we'll get into a little bit of some of the details I think you can share with our audience.
I'm Rebecca Kruckow. I'm a program coordinator there at the UGA SBDC office here in Augusta. We have 17 offices across the state. We are one of those that are available for small businesses that need help in strategic growth and assistance in startup.
Okay, thank you.
And
Rick?
I'm Rick McMurtrey, and Eric here in the background, Fricky. We are consultants here at the SBDC, and so our job is normally helping businesses with normal things, but as we all know, our job has changed in the last week or so to helping businesses with crisis issues. So that's kind of what we're spending our time doing right now.
Oh, somebody's phone's ringing.
Yeah, about every 2 minutes. That's what's been happening all week.
Feels like a call center here.
All right, Eric, did you want to add anything? Or are you wingman?
No, that's quite all right. Rick and I and Rebecca have been working together for about 5 years now, and we're a very efficient operation where, you know, we pay lots of attention to a lot of small business owners, being startups or well-seasoned ones. So.
Okay. Chip, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, certainly. I'm Chip Rutson. I'm the chapter chair with SCORE. SCORE is the volunteer arm of the Small Business Administration, where Rebecca and the SBDC are the paid professional group tied into the universities. There's also a SBDC branch in USC Aiken. And our SCORE chapter handles the whole CSRA. We similarly do things helping businesses start and grow, and then during this time, helping them with all these emergency activities. We also assist nonprofit organizations, where I don't think the SBDC does that.
That's correct.
And we work a lot together, so it's not competitive, but symbiotic, trying to get these businesses up and running and staying alive.
Okay. Well, I know we, before we started this earlier, about 20 minutes ago, you talked about some of the forms. So do you guys want to just give us the highlights of what you're working on for our members and how they can learn more about getting access to some national resources? And then what I think we'll try and do is if people have questions, they can post them in the chat, and then everybody can see the questions, and then we can go back through them over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. Okay.
I will go ahead and start that conversation, and then everyone can take over after that. But basically, we find ourselves in a situation economically for small businesses that is certainly nothing that's ever been experienced before. So the SBA has put forth, well, the Trump administration and the SBA have put forth some processes and procedures that are going to work in assisting those small businesses. Two of the main emphases that have been shared are the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. We can go into a little more detail about those as the conversation moves on, but those are two of the programs that are set forth to help small businesses. And like a majority of the calls that we get in the office, the business owners are wanting to know how can we protect our employees and provide payment for them in this time when we may not be able to sustain that over the long haul. So there are some differences between the two, and you can apply for both, but we'll just kind of get into that as the program moves on.
Okay.
If you know, I'm looking down, I'm stacking my papers in different stacks with all the information on them, so we can answer questions. So the first program that came out a couple of weeks ago was the EIDL that Rebecca mentioned. The way that program works, just briefly, is you take your gross your revenue from last year, subtract your cost of goods to get what the SBA is calling gross revenue, and then you will qualify for a loan up to 50% of that gross revenue. So it's not the net income. It's your gross income, not the net income on the tax return that they're gonna look at. The thing that's happened just this week is the Treasury and the SBA has significantly simplified that application process. Last week it was taking people 2.5 to 3 hours to go through the process. That's once they got into the system. 2.5 to 3 hours to go through the process. Now it literally is about a 4-page. I had a client yesterday that did 4 businesses, and it took him literally about 30 minutes to do all 4 of them through the EIDL process. And the other thing that's changed about that EIDL process is when you apply now, there's a $10,000 immediate cash infusion that is going to be forgiven in the form of a grant. So let's just say you qualify for $150,000. The new program requires you to put in your checking account number, and so once you make the application, it goes through the process. They actually direct deposit the $10,000 into your your checking account for your business, and then the rest of the process takes a few days to go through, and they'll determine how much. It's not under this one. You can't ask for a certain amount. They're going to determine how much you get under the EIDL program. So, but it's much simpler this week than it was last week. The other program is the CARES Act that passed last Friday, and that's the payroll protection part of that is in the CARES Act. And the way that one works is if you've been in business for a year or more, they're going to take your trailing 12-month payroll average. So your average monthly payroll for the trailing 12 months is it's going to multiply by 2.5, and that's what you're going to qualify for. And you can use that for payroll. You can use it for rent, utilities, and some other things. But the one caveat is they will forgive the amount for your payroll, rent, and utilities as long as you maintain your payroll levels at the same level that they are when you make the application. So if you make the application and then you get the loan, and then you reduce employees, they're not going to forgive that entire amount. They're going to discount that by the percentage of employees you have at the end of 8 weeks after the loan and the amount you have now. So and so that program then, and the other way that works is, let's say you borrow $150,000 and your payroll, utilities, rent, and all that add up to $125,000 after 8 weeks. So that $125,000, you will have to go to the bank, and there will be a form that you'll file for forgiveness that they'll forward to the Treasury. But the other $25,000 will then be converted to a 4% loan over the next 10 years. So that's kind of how those two programs work, just in a nutshell. And that, you know, there's some other intricacies involved in there, obviously, but that's kind of how both of those are designed. The difference is you have to apply the EIDL. You have to apply through the SBA, through the Treasury Department. That they're going to make those loans directly from the Treasury Department. The other program, you're going to go to a bank, and it's a 2-page application. They're going to be 100% SBA-backed loans, so banks will have zero liability in making these loans. The other thing about the CARES, the payroll protection loan, is that you do not have to pledge collateral or personally guarantee the loan. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how those two operate.
So there is a question that's brought up: is it a problem that if payroll increases? So my understanding is these numbers will be based on last year's tax information and what you supply to the SBA. So I'm not sure the root of the payroll increases. It's going to be based on what you supply from 2019 on the trailing 12 months. And
yeah,
then
well, it's not the tax return on this. It's if you've been in business for over a year, it's your trailing 12 months. So we're now in April. So they're going to start with your March payroll and go backward 12 months to get your average. So if you add payroll, that's great, but you're not going to be able to go back and say, hey, you know, I want more money as a result of that.
right. Hope that answered your question, Scott.
Is there anything you want to add, Chip, from the score standpoint?
No, I think they covered the summary of the programs very, very good. The forms and the materials are available on the SBA websites and the Treasury website for the PPP. I'm sure your websites have some information, but our local website at SCORE, greateraiken.score.org, greateraiken.score.org. We have a list of some of the references are all there. And then, of course, the SCORE national website, score.org, has a lot of the website information too.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple. The SBA put out yesterday the form for the payroll, and I'm looking at it now. So if I'm looking away from the screen, I'm looking at it, but the payroll protection program, and basically you put in your average monthly payroll times 2.5 equals a number, the number of jobs you have right now when you're applying for this loan. And then you go down and you can use it for payroll, for rent, for utilities, and then there's an other category, and you can explain. It asks for owner information for everybody. And then questions, you know, yes and no questions that you go through. But basically, you take this 2-page document to the bank, and then, you know, they make that determination right there about doing the loan. And so don't think you may walk in and walk out with money the same day, but it's going to be a much more streamlined process than going through a typical SBA 7A loan process. The bank's not going to do any more due diligence because they're just passing money through from the Treasury to the small business owner. So they have zero liability in this. Other than they're gonna make sure that your payroll stuff is right, correct, that you're not overstating payroll and things like that. So
Another thing to perhaps add is the window for the PPP loan is from February 15th to June 30th. You can, if you find out that you are not immediately affected necessarily, and then there's a time that in the next couple of months before June 30th, you feel like there's a need to check into that program, you can certainly do that up until June 30th.
30th, correct. And small business owners can apply April 3rd, which is Friday. And then contract type employees can't apply until the 10th, which is the following Friday. So.
And the EIDL is already going.
And the EIDL is already going, so everyone can apply for that. So, and the EIDL is a straight loan. It's a loan up to 30 years at 3.75 for businesses, 2.75 for nonprofits.
And first payment's not due for 12 months.
Yeah, and you can defer payment on both of these for up to 12 months.
I was wondering if we have a lot of people online right now listening to you guys. So I just want to remind everybody that we are recording this session for those of you that just showed up a few minutes ago. So we will have the recording available either in our newsletter or in our website. We'll make sure that you can go back and answer and hear the answers to these questions. One of the other things I did was I went ahead and put in a few links on the chat. If people want to click on the little icon on the top right-hand corner, I linked the some of the forms that we were talking about earlier that you can sort of scan through. And just for reference, the Clubhouse as a nonprofit is eligible for some of these things. And so we've actually met with our accounting firm yesterday to walk us through the process as well. And for anybody that hasn't gone through this, I agree with them in that it is being streamlined. The funds are available right now with those recurring deadlines. So just make sure that you have the paperwork that you need to fill all this out. So having those as attachments, and don't feel intimidated by it, because I think that's one thing that they've done is make it easy for people to apply, because we didn't realize what the options were. And we'll be talking with some banks this week about partnering with them to put the paperwork through for us. Just know that is available for everybody.
One of the recommendations that we've had come through is just for our best practice is if you have a printed version of the what am I trying to say? A printed version of the document that you're going to fill out online. It's better to have it filled out in front of you. It streamlines everything. So what I was going to add to that is if you will email our office at augusta@georgiasbdc.org, I can give you the paper copy of those applications just so you can see them ahead of time.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm driving, so I can't type. What if for the CARES program, so they do a trailing 12 months of your payroll. What if you haven't had payroll for 12 months? Any idea how they do it that way?
They're going to use January and February's average payroll of 2020.
Perfect. Thanks.
I was wondering if there's a broader definition for when you were talking about self-employed or people that are working for themselves. You know, whether it's even in the gig economy, does it matter what happens if they have multiple jobs, 3 or 4 part-time jobs and things like that, or they don't have anybody on payroll? It's just them.
So it's still, as you know, there are businesses that contract with other businesses, and the question has come up: if I am a business, I am paying a contractor or a subcontractor as part of my my business operations, how do I handle that? Well, the subcontractor or the person that is their own business is going to file for themselves. And so they would be taking their information and filing for themselves as their own business. Did that answer your question?
Grace, to answer your question,
Mhm.
I think if I understand your question right, a lot of these folks generate revenue, but they really don't pay themselves a salary. Is that correct?
That's right. I mean, a lot of our startups are wearing 12 different hats, but they're not drawing a paycheck. They might have support from other means, but A, are they eligible, and B, is there some definition that they would have to describe themselves in this if they didn't have a payroll stub?
Yeah. So under the Payroll Protection Act, as a part of CARES, they're going to take your wage, salary, and here's what's included in the compensation that's multiplied by 2.5. It's salary, wages, commission, or other similar compensation, such as cash tips or equivalent. And then that's going to be multiplied by 2.5. Now there is a cap. Let's say an employee owner pays himself $150,000 a year. That person can only be capped. I mean, it's $100,000 per person for anybody over $100,000. So people that are over 100,000, you're going to cap it at 100 for that one person. What the rest of the payroll is. So, the answer to your question is maybe, because if those folks are tracking how they're paying themselves and can provide documentation how they pay themselves, that could be considered into that, payment of cash, tip, or equivalent type thing. But, they're going to have some documentation on how their compensation was paid.
Okay.
But it may, and it could be that CARES is not the right program for them. I mean, it could be that, the EIDL is the right program for them. Because you can't, the CARES thing takes the payroll and multiplies it by 2.5. So if you don't really have payroll, but you have utilities and other expenses, that they don't multiply that. The 2.5 covers your 2 months worth of rent, or you can apply, part of it to that 2 months worth of rent, utilities, and things like that. So the big thing is having some payroll expense or something that fits that definition, commission, similar compensation to commission. So, if they're taking a draw, something like that, and they can document that, then, that kind of fits into that, similar compensation type argument.
This is Chip Rutson. Can you hear me? From SCORE. I would remember on the presentation on the economic injury loans, you can apply for, let's say you have 2 or 3 LLCs, you can apply for each one with its own EIN. So any business, any EIN. I'm assuming that would be the same for the PPP program. If you were an independent contractor and had a couple of different EINs, you might be able to do it separate applications.
Yeah, and so one of the things we didn't mention earlier, Chip, I'm glad you brought that up, is you can also, as a business owner, apply for the EIDL loan and the CARES loan. So you can get one of each in the same business. You just can't use those for the same purpose. So if you're going to use one for, say, April payroll, you can't use the other one for April payroll as well. They've got to be 2 separate uses for those loans, but you can get both of them in the same business.
Rick, do you mind touching on the statement that if you are already involved in a 7A loan with the SBA, there is deferment in that for up to 6 months, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's what came out yesterday. Is there's a 6-month deferment if you're already involved with the SBA on a loan, on an existing loan.
Have y'all had any clients or anyone that's applied for the EIDL that has already received the confirmation or received the money yet?
I've had several that received confirmation, but haven't received any funding.
Yeah, and part of the problem with that is up until this week, that process was so cumbersome to go through that and the website crashed last week. The SBA website crashed last week, so it's been so difficult that I don't know how many people actually completed the process last week. So, but I can tell you of my clients that actually completed it last week. One of them completed it, I want to say last Monday or Tuesday, and he just got the confirmation yesterday on the original one. So, but then the other ones that he did yesterday, he got the confirmation yesterday for those that they had been, received. So that process is much faster now than it was last week. But the answer is no, we don't have any clients yet that we know for sure got the money so far.
Yeah, the portal, if they got in early, I had like one person got in early and got through. And then, but the new system, I've had several say they've got application numbers associated with it. So that process is quicker and a lot easier to do. That's the idea. So.
Do you imagine anything else coming into the pipeline that we may be privy to in terms of either additional funds or other funds or different paperwork? People are kind of planning out their week in terms of getting their stuff together. That I don't know if it can get any easier, but is there anything else in the pipeline that you think we should know about?
There's nothing that we've seen yet. The one thing that we forgot to mention earlier on this CARES thing is typically if you go to an SBA backed loan, whether it's a 7A or a 504 loan, you have to go to a approved SBA lender. They don't have to be preferred, but they have to be on the approved SBA lender list. On this CARES loan, they're going to make it available where any federally insured institution, whether it be bank, savings loan, will be approved to make these loans just because of the volume of the loans that are going to be coming in. So, so banks that have not done SBA loans in the past now will be able to do SBA loans. And that's part of why they made this process so simple. That's part of why it's a 2-page process. And I can tell you, I've traded texts with a couple of bankers at a couple of banks this morning and asked them before I got on this call, hey, you got a minute for a quick call? And they're like, no, we're in the middle of our conference call to, determine what's going to happen, how we're going to manage this process and all that. So my guess is all the bankers all over the country this morning are having meetings now that the SBA finally put out the guidelines and the form for the payroll protection program. And it will be probably sometime this afternoon before we'll know definitively how banks are going to handle that process and how the SBA is instructing them to handle that process.
Yeah, for the borrower, I think the best way they can prepare, if this helps, is to make sure that they have good payroll records and tax returns, to help with the banks with the lending process. So that's the best way a borrower can prepare for that under the CARES Act. Payroll protection fund.
So Rick, there's a question up in the chat that says, given things are changing so rapidly, would you suggest waiting to apply if there's not an immediate or dire need or not?
If you don't need it right now, I would wait, because you can always apply up until June 30th. And so kind of my thinking is if you don't need it right now, wait until you may need it. And then that just extends that payroll period out, beyond, like if you take it now, let's say you get it approved next week. Well, the 8-week clock starts ticking when you get your loan approved on your payroll stuff. So if you're okay right now and you can pay your employees and all that, you may want to wait and see what happens. And if you get to a point in May or, early June and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna need a little help here to get over this hump. This thing's taken, you know, a little longer than we thought to go through this, you know, coronavirus process. So you may want to wait a little bit. But if you're in immediate need, you need to go ahead and make the application and get the process started, because I know they say, you know, on this payroll protection, you walk in today and you walk out with money, but I'm just telling you, don't count on that.
Yeah, I'd say with business owners, they need to be, you know, the timing of when they need the cash, you know, don't wait till you run out of money to apply. So I think it takes a business owner a smart decision to figure out, okay, I'm starting to lose sales. You know, my occupancy rate in my hotel went from 60 to 20%, or it's going to. A little bit of planning is in order as to when you think you're going to need that cash. So don't wait until you run out of money. You know.
For those of you that are joining us, I just want to remind you, this is the 1 Million Cups chapter, Augusta, with the Clubhouse, and we have SCORE here as well as SBDC, and we are getting questions answered from them. They're local in the Augusta, Greater Augusta region, and if you have a question, you could put it in the chat in the upper right-hand corner. And we've also shared some links for some of the forms that we've been talking about, so they should be easy to download and print. We'll also be sharing some of these on the Clubhouse newsletter if you haven't already subscribed, and I believe we have some links on our website. So the information that they're sharing will be publicly available for everybody. Just so you know, and we are recording this talk, and so we will be uploading this talk for your reference if you want to go back and share it, or you want to take a screenshot maybe of some of the links that we've shared with you all. I did want to expand a little bit on your point about financial institutions, because I imagine a lot of us here may not understand the definition of what that is. So when you said an SBA approved lender, does that include credit unions here in the Augusta area?
Well, I don't know if there are any credit unions on the SBA approved lender list. Really the SBA approved lender is not going to be relevant for this particular loan. They're going to make that available to any federally chartered bank or savings and loan to make these loans. So where the preferred lender thing comes in, if you're doing a traditional SBA 7A loan or an SBA 504 loan, the difference between a certified SBA lender and a preferred SBA lender is the preferred SBA lender already has approval from the SBA to make the loan. They don't have to get all your stuff, package it up, and send it to the SBA for them to approve it. So if they're a preferred lender, once they get all the information, they make the loan, and it's, you know, it's good to go. So that's kind of the difference between just a regular SBA lender and a preferred lender. And so and the difference there sometimes can be 30 to 60 days in how long it takes to get a loan finished, because if a lender's not a preferred SBA lender, they have to get all the information. They have to send it to the SBA, then the SBA has to review it. And if they left out a document, they're going to call back and say, hey, we need this or we need that. That's got to be sent back up there. It's going to get back in queue to be reviewed by somebody in the SBA office. And so, so a lot of times that's an extra 30 and closer to 45 to 60 days most of the time. So that's kind of why on regular loans, we kind of tell our clients, you probably want to use a preferred lender, just simply because it's going to expedite the process for you.
Okay. Again, another kind of banking question. I know this is kind of a twofold question. I know some of our members in the community may not even have a relationship with a local bank here. Either they do stuff all virtually, or they do it with a bank that may not even have a branch in Augusta. So are banks going to be taking these applications from people that don't have accounts with them already, or do they need to go ahead and find another access point to push that paperwork up?
No, they can go to any bank. And so here's the thing, and this is what makes this loan different from traditional SBA loans. The SBA, whichever bank takes that PPP loan, the SBA is going to pay that bank 5% of that loan amount for taking it and processing it up to 350,000, and then above 350,000, it's 3% up to, I forget what the next step is, and it's like 2% over that. So, but the banks are going to receive a fee from the SBA for processing these, and again, they're not going to be sitting on their balance sheets. They have no liability on the bank balance sheet for these loans. The SBA is 100% guaranteeing these loans. So there's no reason that a bank would not, well, for instance, take a $100,000 loan.
Mm-hmm.
That bank would get $5,000, you know, in a fee for processing that loan, for processing a 2-page application. So there's no reason why local banks would not want to do that. And that's part of why the SBA is making this process so easy, so that local banks will want to do it as opposed to not wanting to do it. And that's why some of the local banks don't do traditional SBA loans, the 7As and the 504s, because that's a pretty arduous process. And the time that it takes to do one of those loans with the extra paperwork, they can do 3 or 4 commercial loans in that same amount of time and make more money, you know, generating commercial loans than doing the SBA loans. So, but on this one, it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's 100% guaranteed. The ones we've been doing were partially guaranteed, so just 100%.
Yeah. And when a bank, even if a bank's got 25% in the deal on an SBA guaranteed 75% loan, well, you can bet the bank's going to come. That's where they're going to come and want your house, your cars, your kids, any other collateral that they can get to collateralize that loan, because they've got 25% at risk on that thing. On this one, they have 0 at risk.
Okay. I had another question, kind of going back to the stuff that's eligible for this. When you talked about getting not just the payroll covered, but rent and utilities and some of the overhead costs, can you educate our community as to what would that look like if they are working from home? Is that another different kind of pillar that they need to sort of discriminate?
Here's the thing. They take your payroll, your average monthly payroll, and multiply it by 2.5. So that is to cover 8 weeks worth of payroll, continuing to pay the employees that are on the payroll. And then also, you know, rent, utilities, and all that comes out of that 2.5 multiplier. So they don't add additional money to the 2.5 for rent. You're really kind of that 0.5, that extra is the part, because if they just took the payroll and multiplied it by 2, well, there's 2 months worth of payroll, right? So that 0.5 really kind of is for, you know, some to go towards rent, to go towards utilities and other expenses. But again, to have it forgiven, you got to maintain. You can't take the loan and cut your payroll, or they're going to reduce the amount of forgiveness on the loan. Here's the other thing, that if you do have employees, you need to make sure they understand, especially if you've already laid them off and you get this loan and you call them back to work, they need to understand that they have to quit taking unemployment if they're getting unemployment while you're paying them, because you're going to be required to send your monthly or quarterly report to the Department of Labor with the employees that, you know, you have on your payroll, and that's what's used to, you know, determine your unemployment insurance that you pay. And so it's going to red flag if you're paying somebody and then all of a sudden, you know, they're collecting unemployment, they're double dipping. The Department of Labor is going to come see them. So, and they're going to have some issues, legal issues to deal with.
All right, that's definitely good to know. I wanted to open it up to anyone else. That looks like we have about 19 people on this call, so we have a nice little turnout. Is there anyone else that has a specific question for them? I know that we also have Carrie, who's with the Department of Labor. She seems like she's on here, as well as Chris Dixon with the Advanced Technology Development Center. So I don't know, is there anyone else that has, you know, some specific questions they'd like to ask? We have a very captive audience right now.
Yeah, and Carrie can probably speak to that labor issue better than I can.
She's on mute, so she may be like, I don't know what to talk about. All right, we have question Q&A up here.
Oh, that's right. Excuse me. She's with the workforce side.
There you go. Let's see. Are you guys?
She's probably taking hotel workers and putting them in grocery stores. I mean, there's just a lot of layoffs and a lot of people hiring. I mean, I'm sure she's got enough to keep her busy.
Is your so what's the status of your offices right now? So when we get off this call, if somebody does have a specific question, do they call, email, knock on your door? Are you guys taking any other meetings or any other sort of you know, city format?
No, we're not taking people walking in the door just because of the social distancing thing and all that. So we're doing meetings virtually, and we use Zoom for our stuff. You know, Eric and I, some of our existing clients that we have, you know, if we'll do FaceTime, you know, their phone, our personal cell phone, even though technically we're not supposed to use our cell phones, personal phones, but you know, so if somebody needs some help, you know, if it's just simple help with questions like this, you know, we can give them some information pretty quick. If it's stuff that's going to be more involved, it's going to take more time, we'll have to send them a form. It's a client intake form that the SBA requires us to complete on new clients, and then basically what they'll have to do is we'll have to email it to them. They'll have to fill it out, email it back, you know, electronic signature, and then once they do that, we can set up a virtual face-to-face meeting. But we, you know, right now we're forbidden to do, you know, meetings in the office. It's basically shut down. So.
This is Chip Bretzen from SCORE. We're in the same situation. If you want to talk with a mentor, the easiest way is to go to our website, greateraiken.score.org, and request a mentor. And through the magic of the internet, it comes to our chapter, and we will contact you and do Zoom or telephone meetings with you also.
Okay. There's a Corey had a question on here for Corey. Do you want to say your question? I'm going to read it for you. All right, Corey's on mute. So the question is, what are the recommendations for anybody that's in the process of opening a storefront business? Is there any advice for them or suggestions on how they can get some support if they haven't opened yet?
There's nothing out there for businesses that haven't opened yet.
Yeah, the businesses had to be open by January 31st, 2020.
Correct. So I've got a couple of clients that basically I've told them you may want to just hold off for a little while and see how long this thing takes to play out, you know, as opposed to trying to rush in and do it right now.
Okay. So,
And then our caveat is always, it's your money. You can do what you want. But, you know, recommendation is with the economy being as it is right now, unless you're going to go into a segment that is benefiting from the way the economy is right now, probably better just hold off for the short term.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to remind people these forums, especially on the economic disaster, this is a self-certification process. You know, it's more streamlined, but they're relying on, you know, good faith, honest information. But if you falsely represent yourself on these forums, the penalty for perjury can be high. So be realistic about what you put down and make sure it's truthful.
Okay. Right. Well, I want to share with everybody a few more resources that that we have going on. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. So Chris Dixon's on the call here with the Advanced Technology Development Center, and I believe they are hosting a webinar at 11 a.m. this morning. I think it's also talking about the federal funding stuff, and we'll try and find a link and maybe post it in this as well. So if you want more questions, they're one of our community partners, headquartered in Atlanta, but works around the state. And so they work with a lot of startups and entrepreneurs scaling their companies. And so we're doing some virtual stuff with them as well. So that's another resource for people. Oh, Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to say, look at our calendar at the ATDC website. Everything that we have is going virtual now for all the reasons that we've been talking about. So we do have a session on federal assistance with Connie Castile today from 11 until 12. Then tomorrow we do a virtual discovery class. So that would be what we had tried to get kicked off before the coronavirus hit with our boot camp. We're going to start customer discovery tomorrow, and you do need to sign up for either one. So all that's out there on the calendar, and again, we're all virtual at this point.
All right.
And Grace, I just got an email yesterday. Rebecca and I sat in on a panel with the Augusta Chamber of Commerce to talk about the exact same stuff we're talking about today. The Columbia County Chamber of Commerce is doing a webinar at 1 o'clock today via Zoom, and Daryl Bird and Kyle Smith with Cadence Bank will be talking about issues. And they're probably going to have more information than we have this morning, because the banks all got information and they're all meeting. So the bank process, there's going to be more information about how that bank process is going to work by the time we get past noon today than there is this morning. So that might be a good one if somebody wants to sit in on that Zoom conference.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to follow up on Rick, this is James with the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce. I want to just say thank you to Rick and Rebecca for both being on that presentation yesterday. We are going to be posting the conference that we had yesterday online on our website. So if you want to go back and listen to more information, we'll have that available for you to be able to download through the Augusta Metro Chamber website later on today.
Yeah, and unfortunately yesterday, the forms and everything came out for this new program literally right after we got finished with the webinar with the chamber. So that's why things are so fluid. It's changing quickly that information available right now is going to be different this afternoon.
I know that Chase had just posted the link for ATDC on our chat, so people could click on that link. Can you or Rebecca post or James, can you guys post the link to the Zoom this afternoon in our chat so people can either screenshot it or share that if you know the address and they can see that?
Grace, let me chime in with one more thing for Connie's presentation later this afternoon. The federal government has come out and has asked anyone that has any device that may be of assistance with COVID-19, could be respirators, could be hospital gowns or whatever, to step forward. So a big part of what you're going to hear during her presentation is the process for submitting for federal grants, basically for devices that could help with COVID-19. So we've been getting a lot of traffic along those lines, but that's primarily what she's going to be covering today.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I was also going to say on that note that the Clubhouse is actually, Eric Parker's on his way down to a meeting with some of the area healthcare facilities, because we operate our makerspace with the capacity to also produce some of the things that they're looking for, whether it's the face masks or the other materials. And so just know that the Clubhouse is also doing some stuff locally. So if we have any makers in the audience, or that you know of anybody that wants to connect with us, I know Eric can make those available, and we're looking at some funding to make those things happen, so that this would be something that people, obviously with their talent and materials, might be able to get covered. So I think we're all trying to make that happen. And I will let Eric also know, Chris, that Connie's call this afternoon is related to that.
Yeah, we're getting out of EI Squared. We'll probably have over 100 calls so far with just respirators. I have a 3D printer. Who do I talk to about doing some of the face frames for you and that kind of stuff? And that's front and center on the grant scene anyway.
What about that? What about that 3D printer at the other building downstairs? Is that being utilized to make some pieces?
Yeah, that's what we're working with right now, is trying to figure out the dynamics and the metrics for all of that stuff. Some of it is the supply chain for getting the raw materials. So we're working with our maker community to source some of that, and then again, get those things produced and then put out there into the community, figure out what the needs are for our local hospitals, because we have a lot of makers that want to help.
One thing that's going to happen as a result of this coronavirus issue, and it's already starting to happen, but it's going to happen. You're going to see a significant shift in production of goods and services from China back to the United States. Walmart has already put out, I'm looking at it's called Open Call 2020. They're already putting out, if you are a supplier of new shelf-ready U.S.-made goods and are looking to sell your products, they're going to have a webinar to talk to people. And they're not the only company. There's a lot of companies. This issue has basically opened up a greater understanding of supply chain issues and the devastating impacts of having so much of our goods produced overseas. So I think you're going to see lots of opportunities for a lot of your clients to be able to sell goods to made in the United States to companies, as opposed to them going overseas for those.
Yeah, and let me just chime in from an entrepreneur perspective for all you, the Clubhouse online. I've been amazed at how much open source stuff is out there. So there's companies that make respirators or ventilators that have those designs out there, and they're asking for people to use their designs or giving them for free, right, and saying, hey, just produce these for us. So Grace, I think with your makerspace and with some of the other entrepreneurs, what a great time to get free designs, and they're just asking you to come in and help them source additional products for your local market.
Hey, I'm going to have to get off. I've got another conference call at 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you staying on. I'm going to say a few more things, but before you leave, just know next time you're in the office, you get a fancy schmancy mug. So, this is intended to support coffee as well. That's why it's called 1 Million Cups. So hold me to this. All right. When you come back, if that's okay. Are you heading out too, Eric?
Yeah, I've got to return some calls that just came in the last hour. So
okay.
Yeah, about 18 of them. That's what we've been on this call.
I feel like a call center. I mean, just taking them in.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll just say, Rebecca, are you still staying on for a few minutes?
I can for a couple.
Okay. Speaking of commerce and economic development, I just posted the link for the Clubhouse. We put on our website the virtual amenities that we're having, and one of the things that we're launching is our e-commerce marketplace. So it is intended for our greater community to basically shop if they have available resources to support the Clubhouse members that are selling services and selling products. And so when you're looking at either buying a gift certificate or you want to kind of pay it forward locally, these are all members of the Clubhouse community that are selling their products in an e-commerce marketplace. So we have a form for you to fill out. If you're not a member of the Clubhouse, you can fill out the form as well, and we'll work with figuring out how to share some of the assets that you have. Because I know I've been in conversation with a lot of the retailers in downtown Augusta. There's kind of loose merchants association, and one of the things that they've been sharing is that they have a lot of support from their a lot of support from their current customers, the real advocates for shopping local, but they're looking for some new support. And so a lot of the businesses are still open. They'll do curbside service, whether it's food or product. And then a lot of our members are consultants. And so you can buy gift certificates for anything from tech support to life coaching to insurance information. So I wanted to share that with you too. If people are looking for other resources to sort of help their community, that's available on this as well. Other than that, let's see, yeah, e-commerce makers, Clubhouse. Do you have any parting words, Rebecca, for everybody? We have about 18 people on the call.
So if you have questions, just shoot us an email with the email that I put on the chat at Augusta at Georgia.sbdc. No, I said that wrong. Augusta at GeorgiaSBDC.org. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Our phone number is 706-650-5655. I'll put that in. We'll return your call as soon as we can.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Again, this is the 1 Million Cups chapter. We host it through a partnership with the Kauffman Foundation. This is a recorded event. It's an hour long, so we'll be posting it for the greater community if you want to go back and take some information. And then I'll take we'll have our team take the screenshots of the links they have available, so you can get those as well. And then as we transition through April, we'll be sharing more with everybody some of the other resources that we have, trying to connect people obviously on Zoom to learn more about what we're doing in the community, as well as some events that we do for our members related to connecting with mentors and other people. So again, thank you for that. And Chip, do you have any parting words?
No, I just want everybody to realize that this is a business decision, and you have to think through it from a business perspective of whether you want to take out a loan or you need extra cash. Just don't run to get things because they're available. Think through it as a business person would. What's your long-term expenses going to be? How would you pay some of these back down the road? Also, in your current analysis, if you're a business that has suppliers, you need to check with them. I'm talking to several businesses here that are doing fine right now, but their suppliers are drying up. So they may have to shut down in a couple of weeks just because they can't get the raw materials or the supplies they need for their work. So think of that in the terms that the work you all do too.
Yeah, that's good to know. Seeing the pipeline of information and products that are coming through, there might be a little bit of a delay. So yes, thank you for reminding us all about that.
Grace, I'm going to get off. Thank you very much.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know, unless anybody else from my team has something to say, we're gonna shut this hour off and enjoy your productive work day. And like I said, we'll be sharing this with everybody later. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
There we go.